for day 2 of the challenge, we are going to be using the same 5 colors, but I'm going to mix around the green so we get a different shade of green. So taking the green that we had, the Viridian Green, I feel like this color is too, I wouldn't say bright, but it's not the right tone with the color scheme of the existing colors. It doesn't work well together. So because of that, I wanted to change around the color by adding a tinge of a different color. You will see what we're doing here, which is adding that cadmium yellow that we already use in our paintings and mixing it with this green. So here we end up with a beautiful light green that just perfectly fits the painting. So now that we have our 5 colors, let's do a mini recap. We have our bright cadmium yellow. Then we have our orange. You can use a mix of yellow and red to create the orange. After the orange, we have bright opera pink. I have actually got my opera pink from Art Philosophy. I think Winsor Newton also stocks opera. It is a fairly common color. You should be able to find it easily. If you don't have bright pink, you can use a pink from your existing palette. So we've got this bright pink. The next color we are gonna use is the purple. The purple is a mix of red and blue, or you can use an existing purple that you already have. And finally, we can use the green that we had mixed in the beginning. This is a sap green, and we can use that to complement our color palette. So starting off, this piece has 2 bold flowers. And before we dive into the flowers, I'm doing a quick pencil line because it's going to make it easier for me to understand the placement of the elements. So I've done a side flower on the left. It's just very rough. And I'm doing the center big flowers. Just a rough idea of where everything will go. As I paint, I might change the placements based on what looks better. So this is a step that evolves with the painting. So the first thing we're going to do is paint the main element or the main flower, because those are going to be the focal point of the artwork. So I'm taking bright pink and adding dots around the circle that I had drawn. Adding a lot of these pink dots so that we have more pink when we get into the painting phase. So this pink is a color that can mix very easily, so we do need to add much more of it. After adding pink, let's add a couple of yellow dots to give it a multiple color blend. adding it to the top and bottom flower. Now you can wash your brush, and with your clean brush, let's paint out our petals. So starting from the center, pulling the paint outwards. For the edge, using a wave. You can also call this a heart-shaped petal. And I'm being careful to just pull the color once, not multiple times, because I don't want the pink to blend with the yellow too much, because that will create orange and it's not going to look as good. So just making sure to blend it carefully, adding those heart-shaped petals one at a time. So after you complete your first flower, we can paint the second one. Just being careful to make sure that the colors still look vibrant and you're happy with the shape of the flower. Moving to the next flower, just following the same steps, painting each heart-shaped petal at a time. This technique is just so nice. It just works well because the colors are very complementary to each other and they just look so vibrant and such a summer feel. After doing this, we can add a little bit of bright pink while it's still wet at the center of the flower. Painting flowers can be so easy and so tough at the same time. It is hard to figure out how, if you've overworked a flower, and so it takes more, I would say, practice, obviously, but it also takes more consistency. As you paint every day, you will see your work improve massively. So that's the key, consistency. Once we have finished that, we can move on to our side flowers. The flower that I'm painting now is going to be a half flower. Basically, not a half flower actually, it's just a cone flower where the center is upwards and the petals are down. So I'm using a mix of purple and the pink to create this. So for the petals, you can just kind of pull them from the center, curving downwards. I have another challenge, 5-day challenge on the platform. It's called Beginner Florals. You can check it out. Has a very similar vibe. 5 floral artworks in 5 days, and we go step by step into color mixing and painting different type of florals. So once you finish this one, I suggest you give that a try. So here I have painted out my petals. I've just made sure to paint them downwards and they just look so great. we are going to let this dry, and in the meanwhile we can move into painting some flowers that are going to add height to the piece. You know, this just is going to give more dimension to the painting. If everything is just one area, it just doesn't look as great. So these elements or these flowers that have height just brings so much more to the painting. I've used yellow, so a bright yellow, and I think I used orange. Sorry. I'm doing my voiceover after I finish the recording because when I'm painting, I tend to take my time. Yeah, I used orange. Sorry about that. Anyways, adding the petals one by one and just giving the painting height. In this case, I've maintained the width through the piece. So it starts from down and you slowly move upwards and just maintaining not a big shift in the height of the petals. You know, just go upward. And once you're happy, you can add some thin lines along the sides, and that just brings it together. So we are done with our first layer of the flowers. We can now go in and add those details. So in the purple flower case, just painting the center for the flower. So I'm gonna switch to my thin detailer brush. I'm gonna take a saturated amount of purple and add that, making sure it is a little bit textured so it looks really nice. And then use this thin detailer line to add this thin detailer brush to add in outlines for the flower. It's just gonna bring it together and give it more control. I'm doing broken lines as always, and just in some areas, and just bringing it all together. Love how this looks. We can move on and do the next cone flower. Similar technique, doing the center and then doing the outline for the petals. Once you've done the cone flowers and completed them, we can move on to the remaining flowers in the artwork. For the big main focal flowers, using orange to add some details along the center of the flower. Again, all with texture, adding broken lines I'm using a saturated layer of orange so that it really shows through and just comes together. Now moving on to adding orange for the center of the longer flower. We are getting closer to the painting. We've added so many details and we just have to add the leaves to bring it all together. So adding that deep orange and then just adding it. After you're happy with that, we can switch to our thin brush, which you must have been using all along, I hope, and you haven't moved on. We can take a little bit of that green and add stems. You can see how I'm making sure the stems are connected from the flowers all the way to the bottom. Even the long flowers, just connecting them along the center to a main central stem and bringing it all the way to the bottom. Finally, we move on to my favorite part of painting, which is painting leaves. I just love how beautiful it looks because leaves complete the painting. It just is part of the flower. You know, flowers without the leaf doesn't look as natural. So it's super important, it's super fun. And we can add some small leaves like we did in the previous painting along the center of our flower. For the remaining stems, let's add longer leaves. I talk about how to paint longer leaves in the brush drills video. I've attached the link to the top so you can check it out. Finally, let's add some Cresspedia on either side. And this is just... Did I say bring together the painting too many times? I think I did. But I don't know what else to say. I think that is the perfect way of describing it. But I'm gonna get more creative and come up with different ways to say the same thing. But yeah, using the Crespedias on both sides. We did this in the previous painting, so you should know how to go about it, which is just add in the yellow and then add dots of orange along the bottom. And we are done with our painting. I like how this has turned out with the addition of the Cresspedia. I think without it, it didn't look as good. This just made it look better. What do you think? I'd love to hear in the comments below. And this is day 2 of our challenge.